Hello people, I am WyrdBean, and this is WyrdLore about Cuphead. I wasn't going to do lore on Cuphead because I thought it was pretty straightforward until I saw this. On the surface, the story of Cuphead seems like a classic story of selling your soul to the devil and fighting to get it back. And as you play through the base game, that's exactly what it is, until the delicious last course. When the game first starts, we meet a sort of father figure called Elder Kettle. But did you know that Elder Kettle is based off of a 1935 cartoon called Picnic Panic? After watching this cartoon, I began to notice something strange about the plot of Cuphead. Notice anything about this character? That's right. This is the inspiration for Esther Winchester, who is not an NPC, but a boss in the new DLC. Look at what the family is eating on their plates. Yep, sausages. During Esther's third phase, if you die, the death screen reads, "Let's be franks here, I'm your worst nightmare." And during the final phase, the death screen reads, "A gal can't enjoy a moment's peace without you meddlin'." At first it seems like this dialogue is directed towards you, until you realize the dialogue is two different people talking to each other. The sausage, being the corrupted side of Esther, is trying to fight its way to the surface of her consciousness, while the cow side of Esther is trying to find peace. In her second phase, she uses valuables such as money and gold as a weapon, which means she has been corrupted by these valuables. Several other bosses also do this. Let's take a look at some of those bosses. Ribby and Croaks spews coins in their third phase, in which the two characters have now fused together to form a single boss. Ribby and Croaks were inspired by a 1929 cartoon called Springtime, in which a frog savagely beats turtles in the head. The cartoon is about survival, and as we move up the food chain, we see larger and larger predators. This is similar to how the game's bosses are presented, where we begin fighting plants and end fighting the physical manifestation of death. It's also clear that the entire fight is heavily inspired by fighting games, as Ribby and Croaks actually both use Ryu and Ken's taunts from Street Fighter. This is where I began to notice a trend in the game of two separate entities being merged together as a result of greed, or a single entity losing a piece of themselves also due to greed. Here are some other examples. Jamie being controlled by a slug creature in Jamie the Great, the snail controls the anteater in Moonshine Mob, Glumstone the Giant is being controlled by his magic ulcer in Glumstone the Giant, etc. All of the bosses in the first game were victims of the devil's game. Look at what happens to Cuphead if you accept his offer to join his team. You become a puppet of chaos looking for its next victim. What about the bosses from the DLC? It seems that some new force has sunk its roots into the brains of these victims. Sure, it's possible that this is still the work of the devil, but I don't think so. I think that the complete story of Cuphead is not about the literal devil. It doesn't matter who it really is. And while you might be thinking, well, that's not entirely accurate, and maybe some of these weren't meant to be taken literally, it does begin to set a sort of theme about the story of control. The entire story is a social commentary of how capitalism corrupts and controls people. This is displayed by Esther, who had no food and was beaten by a family at the park until she played capitalism's game. Ribby and Croaks were just normal frogs until they no longer felt they were strong enough compared to those around them. And that's when they became a tool to milk people dry for their money. A slot machine. All of these characters had something to lose if they didn't make a deal with the devil. They were given an unfair choice: to starve and be homeless, or sign the contract. For many, this was a choice between life and death. What about the few characters we see in Cuphead who weren't affected by this, such as Elder Kettle? These characters represent privilege in our society. They've never suffered and could never understand the people who are forced to work with the devil. But in reality, they've been working with the devil since they were born. Chef Saltbaker was a local business owner that struggled to make ends meet. But there's one outlier in this theory that I could never figure out. Why was Chef Saltbaker trying to rule the astral plane when everyone else was attempting to win capitalism? Well, it turns out that Chef Saltbaker's grand plan wasn't intended to be evil. He calls his new world an astral treat, in which people would no longer have to suffer war, hunger, and sickness. Esther can't afford food, Glumstone had a stomach ulcer, the Moonshine mob is trying to protect their family, etc. Saltbaker had to act quick. But he begins to break as he discovers the recipe requires a soul. He was given an impossible choice between the soul of a stranger and his dear friends. The story of Cuphead isn't about Cuphead. It's about a character who has made a mistake that won't be forgiven because of others' greed and how corporations seek to control their sources of money. But if you still don't believe me, there's one last secret I haven't seen anyone on the internet talk about. If you purchase the broken relic from Pork Ryan's Emporium and solve the graveyard puzzle by talking to the 3 climbers from 1st to 3rd, and clicking the corresponding gravestones, you will discover that there is a secret boss called the Angel and Demon.
A brawl is surely brewing. You're up.
Now, you normally wouldn't notice anything here, but while I was editing a video, I began to hear something while reversing. Here's the clip now. Did you notice the strange audio? Here's what it sounds like in reverse.
This is Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook.
Okay, that was pretty clear. But why did they put that in the game? Well, I did some research, and Mark did a video confirming he's a lizard.
I am a lizard.
Is Grim Matchstick Mark? No, because Grim has 3 heads. But Mark does have 3 sisters. Now this is where it gets weird. Take a look at the Phase 4 death screen. The mark of my salinity shall scar thy fired glaze. Is this a hint? This is a similar quote to Gil from Street Fighter 3, who says, "The mark of my divinity shall scar thy DNA." Revelation 14:9. If anyone worships the beast in its image and receives its mark, he too will drink the wine of God's anger, poured into the cup of his wrath. You are the cup of God's wrath, sent to punish Mark for trying to create a world that shouldn't exist. Let me know if you guys found this too, and how you interpreted it. And then we were able to stop Saltbaker, but it's never made clear how he obtained this recipe to control the astral plane, or why he used a similar quote to Gil from Street Fighter. This leads to another question that we will save for future videos, but is Cuphead a multiverse? Every plotline in the Cuphead universe seems to have been the result of someone tampering with the multiverse, as there are hundreds of similarities, if not thousands, to other dimensions. Overall, I was pretty disappointed in this ending, as it created more loose ends than answered them. I hope you enjoyed this video. I put a lot of work into it. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more lore videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment any secret lore that I might have missed. Bye guys.